What is going on, everybody? What is going on, everybody? My name is Jeff Lightsey Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to come on in. Hit that thumbs up button, like, share, and subscribe as we upload new videos every single day. Today, we're going to be talking about Art Briles. Art Briles looks like it's just according to all the reports, he's going to be the next offensive coordinator for the Grambling State football team. Now, Art Briles is a name, if you're a college football fan, that rings a lot of bells. And for some of you, it's getting you all excited about what he could do at Grambling. But for some, it's rubbing them a bit the wrong way. We're going to talk about it and what I think should happen. I don't know, right after the bumper. Stay tuned. What is up, good people? What is good people? My name is Jeff Lightsey Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button as you come in, like the stream, share the stream, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is Jeff Lightsey Jr. because today we are talking about Art Briles. So there was the reports that kind of filled these HBCU streets that Art Briles looks like he is going to be the next offensive coordinator at Grambling for head coach Hue Jackson. Now, Loose Cannon comes in and says he about to be an agent for real. I don't think the NCAA and I don't think even white people like Art Briles enough for him to do this. And we're going to talk about why they don't. So Art Briles is someone. Well, let's take a look at the HBCU Game Day. They were the first people I saw report about this. HBCU Game Day came out with an article and said Art Briles get close to joining the Grambling staff. It said, Art Briles reportedly close to joining the Grambling staff. It says it looks like Art Briles will soon be coaching at an HBCU. The former Baylor University head coach is reportedly close to being hired by Grambling State, according to Football Scoop. The deal hasn't been finalized yet, but it is expected to be completed. Grambling State head coach Hue Jackson is looking to fill his offense coordinator position after Ted White was hired by the Houston Texans. After a brilliant career as a high school coach, Briles went 34-28 as the head coach from Houston, but his career took off when he took over the Baylor Bears program. And under the Baylor Bears program, where they didn't have much of a program before Art Briles, they won back-to-back conference titles in 2013 and 2014. They also had the Heisman Trophy winner in 2011 and Robert Griffin III, and who also went on to be on the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. But following the 2015 season, there's a bunch of assault scandals that took place at Baylor since then, and that's what led to Art Briles being fired. So if you don't know, Art Briles was the head coach of Baylor from 2008 to 2015. He had a bunch of success. Like I said, won Big 12 titles, had a Heisman Trophy winner, was always in the top 25. Hell, most of the time he was even in the top 10. But back in 2015, they had these sexual assault scandals that took over Baylor, and that's what got him fired. The university essentially found that he was negligent. His lawyers claimed that he's been exonerated and he was never charged with anything. His record is still pretty clean as a coach in the NCAA, but he was fired, and then he was up in the CFL, and they kind of ran him out of town because of those allegations. He was still under investigation. So they ran him out of town from the CFL. He went and coached high school for a little bit, and then he didn't coach at all in 2021. So Art Briles, but the reason why any of this is worth talking about is because the offenses that Art Briles produced while he was at Houston and then at Baylor, like I said, his offenses were some of the most elite in the country, so much so that his son Kendall Briles has had a number of offensive coordinator jobs since he was with his dad back in 2015 at Baylor. Kendall Briles is currently the offensive coordinator for Arkansas, and we saw Arkansas. He's been the Arkansas offensive coordinator since 2020, since their coach Pittman got there, and Kendall Briles has rejuvenated that Arkansas offense with guys that have been able to score a ton of points. And that all goes back to Art Briles and what he was able to do during his time at Baylor. Now, Like I said, Art Briles has been, according to his lawyers, exonerated for what took place at Baylor. Obviously, it was a sexual assault is nothing that we can ever sneeze at, and it's something that definitely needs to be taken seriously. But I know a few of the Baylor players who were accused of sexual assault were exonerated, and Art Briles' lawyer says he has been exonerated. None of his wins were vacated, nothing like that. He just was fired from Baylor, and then I think he had a 4 or 5 year show clause thing. Like basically he could be hired by an NCAA school, but they just would have to show why they're hiring Art Briles. He had that for 5 years. I want to say that lifted in 2020. So he is a free agent and he is able to join. He has not been hired by any NCAA team since he was let go at Baylor. And now it looks like he is going to be at Grambling. Now, why is this significant? Well, one, because it pairs two really, really good offensive minds in football together, Art Briles and Hue Jackson. Another thing, as you know, G-men, G-women, Grambling fans all along, you guys know you guys were the worst in SWAC in scoring points. You guys scored under 17 points per game and were last in yards with under 240 yards a game. So you were at 232 and a half yards per game and at 16 points per game. That ain't going to cut it. That's not going to cut it when you see Jackson State bringing in all those receivers. It's not going to cut it when we see FAMU reloading on the offensive end. It's not going to cut it when you get Texas Southern and Andrew Body down there. It's not going to cut it with Coach Dooley over at Southern looking to put up a bunch of points. 16 points a game ain't going to cut it. So Art Briles is going to be in there to do what Jackson State hopes Brett Bartolone can do. Now, the difference between Art Briles and Brett Bartolone is Art Briles has actually proven it at the highest level. He has proven that he has been able to flip around offenses at the highest level in college, winning games over Oklahoma, winning games over Texas, winning games over teams he had no business beating. He was in the same conference as Oklahoma and was scoring more points than them. He was in the same conference as Texas and was scoring more points than them. He was doing the dang thing. Like, this man knows what he is doing when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. And that could be scary for the SWAC. That could be beneficial greatly for Grambling. But there also is the PR, I'm not going to call it a PR nightmare, but the PR stuff that could come with it. Obviously, sexual assault is nothing to play with. Sexual, harassment is nothing to play with. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to say all, but some of the players from Baylor have been exonerated in some of those charges. Art Briles' lawyers are claiming he's been exonerated. And so all it really took was a school to give him a chance, and now you're going to see what it's going to be like. Now you're going to see what it's going to be like for a coach who allegedly was run out of town because of negligence, essentially. He didn't know what was going on. They claim he didn't know what was going on within his program, and there were allegedly players doing these things to these women. And you got to think about Baylor during that time, too. Baylor had a lot bad going on. They had the Sean Oakman and the players getting accused of sexual assault. You had the head football coach being accused of negligence or covering it up. That was the original charges, that he knew of what the players were doing, and he kind of covered it up. So that's what really kind of ran him out of town. And then you also had on like the other side of the sport, it was a nightmare for Baylor sports during this time. This is when Brittany Griner also came out, because Baylor is a private institution. She came out and basically said Baylor was so disappointed and didn't want anybody to know that she was gay. I want to say all of that was happening all around the same time. And so that was like a black eye on the Baylor program. Like, so they kind of cleared house and kind of got rid of all that stench, or tried to get rid of all that stench from all the bad stuff that was happening around that time. And so what do I think about Art Briles at Grambling? Well, first of all, I would imagine someone like Hue Jackson, who's worked in the NFL, has done his due diligence on someone like Art Briles. And so therefore, not only are you bringing in a man whose teams were accused of sexual assault, you're also bringing in a man whose teams were accused of sexual assault to an HBCU atmosphere. Now, if you in your heart believe what Art is telling you, I'm assuming, what his lawyers are telling you, I'm assuming, and what your due diligence has come to find, that he is an innocent man and that he didn't cover up anything, and that these are all accusations and nothing was concrete, etc., and you believe all the due diligence that you have done says that Art Briles is a good guy, then bring him on because he is going to help your football team. Art Briles does a couple of things for you instantly. Besides the fact he made your offense better instantly, he's going to make your quarterback, whoever that may be, whether it's a guy on the roster, guy coming in via transfer portal, young man coming in through the recruiting class, he's going to elevate the play of whatever your quarterback you trot out there game one for Grambling State. That is point blank, period. That's what Art Briles is going to do. Art Briles also, because he has a history of coaching high school football in Texas, he also opens up a Texas pipeline. The man's last coaching stop was at a high school in Texas. Before he became the Houston coach, he was a legendary Texas high school football coach. So he instantly opens up a pipeline of Texas high school football recruits. That means the quarterbacks that come out of Texas. That means the receivers and skill players that come out of Texas will now have a keen eye for Grambling because a lot of them will want to play in an Art Briles run offense. Don't believe me? Look at what his son is doing at Arkansas. Do you not think kids want to go play for Arkansas right now? Yes, they do. Kendall Briles learned everything from who? Papa Briles, Art. And so that right there, football-wise, X's and O's-wise, it is a grand slam dunk, touchdown, game winner, Super Bowl winning hire. Football strictly. It is a can't miss hire. Because Art, I know some of you, when I posed this question on Twitter, there was conflicting answers. Some was like some of you say, Art has too much baggage. I see Aziz says Art has too much baggage. And I can completely understand that. I was not dismissing any comment because I was just curious to take the pulse of the Graham fam, to take the pulse of Grambling, see how you all felt. And the baggage is real. Like, that is real. The man couldn't even get a job in the CFL because of all the baggage. But once again, things have changed in a good way for Art over the last year. The CFL attempt was a couple of years ago. As of August 2021, his lawyer saying he's been exonerated. So in the last year, or less than a year, in the last 6-8 months, things have upswing. Things have swung, the pendulum has swung for the better in case of Art. And you get a guy who is up to date on offenses because his son is still a current offensive coordinator in the SEC. So some were like, yeah, Art Briles, one of those high-powered, explosive offenses, in the early 2010s or, late 2000s or whatever. But what about now? Well, I'm pretty sure, all the game has done is continue to develop and grow in his area, his style of play. The guys that even got hired in the Big Ten after Art were guys like Tom Herman, were guys like Lincoln Riley, were guys that were going to come in and give those teams a jolt on offense. They all based that off what Art was able to do at Baylor. If we just being real, if we just keeping it a bean, that's what took place. Lincoln Riley got hired after Art Briles was having dudes win Heismans and things like that. Tom Herman was hired after Art was scoring a bunch of points, and they wanted to get in on that offensive scoring power. Oklahoma wanted to get Lincoln Riley was their offense coordinator. They just said, we're making you the coach and waiting because we want to score like Baylor. And so you bring that in. It's a grand slam A+ hire. And you're right, Dustin. Hue has already shown he can go out and get the kids from the West Coast. He can go out and get a California player to leave Southern California to come to Grambling, Louisiana. It's a lot easier for kids from Texas to come to Grambling. Hell, Hue was able to flip a young man who had a Texas offer and come to Grambling, who chose Grambling over Texas. And he was able to get the young man's teammate, the one who threw the JSU hat, which is hilarious. You open up a Texas pipeline with the Cali kids that you're already bringing in, with the Art Briles style of offense. Now, what I know Art Briles can do is what JSU is hoping Brett Bartolone, they're hoping Brett Bartolone can get a slither of that, can get a slither of what Art Briles was able to do with Baylor. They're hoping Bartolone can do a slither of that because that same Baylor offense saw RG3 win the Heisman. That same Baylor offense put guys like Corey Coleman in the league, put guys like Justin Gordon in the league. Those are the type of players Art Briles was getting at Baylor. Game breakers, game changers, top flight athletes. And if he's able to help, he starts putting up points like that at Grambling. Woo-wee! Woo-wee! And Kevin, you are absolutely right. And if Grambling, they come out there and they start putting up 35, 40 points a game, lighting up the scoreboard, all that Art Briles baggage stuff goes out the window. It just does. Winning cures it all. Winning cures it all. Real talk, you're right. If you believe in Hue as a coach, you have to believe in, and you can't and here's the thing about Hue's hires. Hue's hires are being lauded as so good that he hasn't even coached a game, and there's NFL teams plucking dudes off his staff already. Hue hasn't coached a game at Grambling, and that coach that was plugged to be the offensive coordinator, Ted White, got plucked by the Houston Texans because even the NFL saw that man could value them in a certain kind of way. And he coached a game yet. So that means Coach Jackson is making some nice staff hires if you're getting guys plucked by the NFL. Before you even coach a game? Yo, that is going to, that speaks volumes to what Grambling's doing. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It says the transfer portal is littered with athletes with checkered past, and we picked them up. This is no different. And that's what a lot of people were saying, real talk. A lot of people on my comments and things were saying yo, everybody deserves a second chance. And that is true. We're seeing a ton of guys get second chances. We see a ton of people in life get second chances. And so I think if Art was exonerated, because don't get me wrong, sexual assault and sexual abuse, I just can't tolerate it. That's not something I can stand by. But if he is exonerated, he didn't go to jail, didn't have any wins vacated, the university just found him of negligence, then I think he's deserving of an OC job. And I know that he will help Grambling tremendously. That's the beauty behind it, because I want Grambling. Now, you guys know I want Grambling and Coach Hue Jackson to have a ton of success, because I want all these SWAC schools to have success. The more success that they have, the more they get talked about by dudes like me, and the better it is for everyone. Not just myself, not just the school, but the program, the university, the community, everything. It's just better for everybody. And so Art Briles, I know, can help that football team. I know he will be able to help them win games. But it's just about whether you believe that he's innocent or not. It says, if the president athletic director has it's a go for me, Grand fan. Kevin A, like you said. And now, obviously, this isn't official. This is unofficial, but it looks like it's trending that direction. Yo, Art Briles, let me see if I can kind of really get you to grasp how great Art Briles was as the head coach and how good his offenses were while he was the head coach at Baylor. Not at Texas, but at Baylor. Let me see if it says any of his player stats or anything. I mean, the man is a successful head coach. Like I said, he kind of, it's just, but we got to take the good with the bad. We got to take the good with the bad, and you got to this is why. So this is coming from an SI. This is why people are hesitant. And I can't blame them for being hesitant. So this is coming from Sports Illustrated, a Texas affiliate of Sports Illustrated. It says, should Briles be hired, it would mark the first time that he has coached at the college level since his departure from Baylor. Briles was fired. Now listen to this. This is why people are hesitant, guys. Now this is what you have to consider if he ends up getting the head coaching job, and why so many teams have stayed away from him for so long. Briles was fired following a massive sexual assault scandal in 2016, in which one lawsuit stated that there were 52 R words. I'm not even going to say it because the algorithms are going to mess my video up. R words committed by at least 31 Baylor football players between 2011 and 2014 under Briles' watch. Now, like this is why there's backlash. That's not a small allegation. That is not a small thing to be accused of. Now, once again, Briles' lawyer claims he has been exonerated. Briles, let me go ahead and read that. Like that way you're getting both sides of the coin and you understand. Let's see. This is why you're getting, different people on different sides of the coin. Now, this comes from the Associated Press. This article, and that's why I referenced this article earlier. It was written in August of 2021. Let me go ahead and share that with you, and let's read some of it. And that way you guys, Gram fam, understand. Now, Ricky saying those charges were dropped. Yes, I think I want to say this is why we're reading, and I just want to give you guys the full picture. It says 5 years after he was dumped by Baylor. So this was written in 2021. It says 5 years after he was dumped by Baylor, Art Briles was front and center in a withering NCAA infractions report Monday that ripped him for failing to look into horrific and potentially criminal allegations involving his football players. Yet the infractions panel didn't find him guilty of any NCAA violations, and his attorney said he is cleared to return to college coaching. Quote, my client, Art Briles, has been completely exonerated and clear of all NCAA violations alleged against him, the attorney Scott Tempers told ESPN. As the NCAA Committee on Infractions explained, the conduct at issue was pervasive and widespreading throughout the Baylor campus, and it was condoned or ignored by the highest levels of Baylor leadership. So what Art Briles' attorney is saying is it wasn't Art Briles that had a problem. It was Baylor University that had the problem. If there was a bunch of sexual assaults and the R words taking place at Baylor as a school, it was the school that failed the students, not Art Briles. That is what his attorney is alleging right here, simply because he wasn't found in any kind of NCAA violation. It says Briles was fired by Baylor after an internal investigation revealed in May of 2016 that the world's largest Baptist university, that's another reason why this was so big, had for years mishandled and failed to properly respond to numerous sexual assault allegations by students, including some against football players. So that falls on Briles because that's what the school university investigation said. Briles has long disputed the allegations against him. In the 51-page report, the infractions committee didn't hold back on Briles. It said, quote, in each instance, when the head coach received information from a staff member regarding potential criminal conduct by a football student athlete, he did not report the information and did not personally look any further into the matter, the panel said. Quote, his incurious attitude towards potential criminal conduct by his student athletes was deeply troubling to the panel. Come on, I mean, that ain't sounding too good, guys. I mean, I'm gonna just be honest. This doesn't sound too good, and you have to understand why Grambling fans, HBCU sports fans could be weary about Art Briles entering the SWAC as a coach and the questions that he'll be faced with, because people are going to ask about it. The man hasn't coached in college since all this went down. So people are going to ask Hue about it. People are going to ask the Grambling president about it, the Grambling AD about it. Hell, and if they get a chance to talk to Art, they're going to ask Art about it. Albeit this was 5 years ago, this is very, very, very serious allegations levied against potentially the next offensive coordinator at Grambling. For everything that's right on the football field, there's a lot of wrong off the field during his time at Grambling. And how are you going to be able, if possible, to justify this if you're Coach Jackson, if you're Grambling State Athletic Director, if you're Grambling State President? These are things you got to think about. These are things, once again, Briles professes his innocence. Briles' lawyers professes his innocence. But the Baylor said he wasn't innocent. That lawsuit claims, allegedly, that took place. Let's continue reading. It says, still the panel didn't find Briles guilty of any rules violation. So there's the thing. There's one thing to not be guilty of any rules violations. There's another thing to allow a crazy, toxic culture for your football team. Those are two different things. Yeah, you can be innocent as far as the NCAA and violations go, but you can be a bad person, and you can have allowed a toxic culture to go on at Baylor. But that's for Grambling to decide. It says the one former Baylor employee directly sanctioned by the NCAA was former director of football operations Odell James, who was hit with a 5-year show cause order. A representative of James said James, who was on Baylor staff from 2004 to 15, was being improperly punished for declining an in-person interview and was exploring options to challenge this decision. The NCAA did find rules violations between 2011 and 2016, including impermissible benefits and drug testing violations in football programs. They found that with every program, so I'm not too worried about that. And NILs are a real thing now, so that's not nothing to worry about. But the infractions panel reluctantly agreed with Baylor that the mishandling of various allegations on the Waco campus, quote, did not constitute violations of NCAA legislation. The 65-year-old Briles hasn't coached at the college level since leaving Baylor, where he led the Bears to their only 2 Big 12 conference titles, won 65 and 37. Baylor had 4 10-win seasons in a 5-year span after only winning 10 games once before that. 5 of those 5 wins from the 2011 season, where the Bears went 10-3 and quarterback Robert Griffin III became the school's only Heisman Trophy winner, could be vacated because of the use of an ineligible player who did receive impermissible benefits. We're not worried about that because, like I said, NIL is real. So yeah, I mean, these are things, like, in all seriousness, these are things, if you're a Grambling fan, if you're a G-Man fan or G-Woman, these are things you got to think about. Our Briles is going to be a tremendous asset from a football perspective, but he could be a PR nightmare. It just depends on what side of the fence that you sway on. Leave your thoughts in the chat. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Once again, my name is Jeff Lighty Jr. with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at JLighty7. That is Instagram and Twitter, is where I pose these questions, where I have these conversations before I bring them to the YouTube, before I bring them to everywhere. You can see it on Twitter. Also, check out my interview with Malachi Weidman. I talked to JSU star athlete Malachi Weidman. You can check that out on Jeff Lighty Jr. YouTube. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Peace.